Thank you, Jamie. How lovely to be here. I wish I was the one dancing instead of speaking. But anyhow, compromises too much, not too much. So I've been given this really lofty subject, which is taking charge of your career. And I was wondering, an audience feels like they've taken charge of their career recently. That's shown that. I can firmly state that I do not have the answer to that. But what I thought I would do is just give you a bit of a quick run through of what I've done in my career to date. But more importantly, try and get back some of the learnings I've had along the way, because I think it is quite an unusual career that I've had. And my provocation I bring to the table today is dance, and being a dancer is a gateway to a most extraordinary careers. It might not just to a career. It is a gateway to so much opportunity. That is absolutely true for me. And I think dance is also just a gateway to lead a glorious life. So that's my provocation. Let's see if I can convince you today. So this is a bit about me. I'm trying to do it in one chart, which is quite sad. And it's also quite an ambitious attempt, so I actually want to do it. But I grew up in Africa. This is a beautiful town called Cape Town. Anyone been there? And I tell you, dance is hot there. Like, there's such creativity and so much interest in that part of the world. So I'm very luckily born there. I've unfortunately born with something called femoral anteversion. So I had both my legs broken when I was 5 years old to try and rectify the legs. And in those days, the surgery was quite extreme. I was basically on my back in plaster of Paris like that for 3 months, and then I was in a wheelchair, and then I was on crutches. So for about a year when I didn't walk, let alone dance. But I had a brilliant physio who basically said to me, one of the best ways to get yourself up and running again is to dance. And I took him on his advice, and at all of 7 years old, I remember telling my parents that I was going to become a ballerina. And they laughed. But I did. So this is... it's really hard to try to find a photograph of yourself that you actually like if you're a dancer, right? Does anyone empathize? But that was me in one of the ballets I did. I was very lucky. I did pre-Lausanne when I was 16. So I was very classical ballet, so apologies for all of that. But I was very into my classical. Loved free. I actually did really quite well. That gave me the confidence to then go about a professional career. I had a few offers, and I ended up being in Cape Town City Ballet Company. Quite tall for dance, for ballet, for classical ballet. So I did a lot of sort of balancine, and I had a few pieces created on me. We had David Bentley come over. Our repertoire was fantastic. And then I also managed to dance with Pact, and I did some really nice stuff for strong, athletic, tall dancers in that company, because that repertoire really suited me. And then I did that really crazy thing. I started asking, like, what next? I must have been about 24 when I started that exercise. And I think what sparked that for me was the sense of I wasn't going to be the next Darcy Bustle. I had some really honest conversations with myself about what my strengths were as a dancer, where I was going to go next. And it also struck me that I was young enough to try and do something else. And I searched long and hard for what that something else would be. It's quite a terrifying thing to do, which is why I so love DCD. And I so appreciate Vanessa and the team for what they're trying to do over here. But it was a really terrifying stage, or just to go, what can I do? I'm unqualified and never finished a university degree. And actually, the best advice I got was from my dad, who was a CMO for Diageo. And he said, actually, it's quite interesting. So another creative business you might want to look at is advertising. So I did. I got into advertising. I also moved to the UK and married a Welshman. It's a whole other presentation on that is already done at some point. And I did various I ended up leading marketing services companies. It's quite interesting if you want to hear about transferable skills. A lot of what we do as dancers absolutely translates to anything to do with communication and creativity. But along the way, I learned things like how to read a P&L and how to drive business and how to talk to C-suite and solve big business problems. Just suddenly curious, I guess. And I also proceeded to have 2 children, so you can sort of see them emerge in there. There's great and my dancer girl who gave up dancing at 11 because she wanted to do nothing to do with what I had to do. So she unfortunately never became a dancer either. I have 300,000 bees on the bottom of the garden and 7 sheep. So that's kind of the world that I've created outside of all of this. And I was then poached about 8 years ago to go join Facebook at the time. And I guess the reasons for that were simply that I knew how to do digital quite well. I was quite good at dealing with enterprise-level big clients and engaging with them, solving big problems. But they gave me a bit of a break, I guess, because, it's one of those moments in history where technology, I think everyone talks about technology all the time, don't they? So I was very lucky. I had a sort of headwind in my tailwind in my career, which is to land up at Facebook, where I've been for 8 years, and I've been leading the global enterprises, but I've also been leading, this sounds terrible, I don't know what it means either, so don't worry, a vertical acceleration for go-to-market for Meta. So anything to do with Facebook, Meta, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus, VR, AR, all of that stuff has become my vocabulary over the last few years. And then today, which is mine now, so I'm a bit worried about whether I make it today or not. It's the first day on my new job. I've actually just joined Intuit. It's a software services company from the US. And it's the first time the one actually grew their business outside of the US. So I've just started VP at Intuit. Random, right? So this crazy career of mine, I try to fill out some threads. I've got 10 bullet points, which I hope are of interest to you. Again, it's my lived experience. It doesn't mean it's the answers to everything that you might be wanting to go through. But this is what I've learned so far. So this is James Clear. If any of you hadn't read Atomic Habits, I really recommend it because he talks a lot about what it takes to have big goals in life and actually what it takes to deliver them. And I love this quote: "The critical quality to develop in life is the willingness to try." And I remember very early on in this massive shift beyond dance, not going to have a clue as to what I wanted to do, but I thought, let me try some things. And the way I tried was pretty humble. I didn't particularly like being bossed around. I was used to be on stage and getting flowers and had a bit of a reputation. I was a queen, right? And I went in as an EA and I filed. And those are the days we had actual physical files. And I did all the work that no one else wanted to do. And that seems to be quite a good strategy for career shifts, by the way. Go and try, you can see what you like. And what I would say is, having made that transition from day one, I wasn't like going, this is my purpose, this is what I was designed to do, this is the perfect job. I didn't go in with that expectation. I went in with the expectation of what can I learn and what will that then develop in terms of my future career. So I hope that resonates with somebody in the room. I love this. There's a fantastic academic called Don Clifton. If you haven't done Strengths Finder, I highly recommend it. It's online, it's free in the mail, and there are many books and lots of academic literature that are followed around some of the work that he developed way back, I think it was in the 80s. That you cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you already are. And what do I mean by that? Everyone talks about transferrable skills, right? And I'm always a bit worried about that because I'm like, what am I taking? Is it really going to transfer? Especially, with strengths I can really speak to. So what are my strengths is having been a dancer. I have spent a lot of time putting myself in the shoes of other people and becoming part of the music or part of the character. That level of empathy and responsiveness to an environment is very rare. And I would say dancers do this beautifully, right? There are things like the incredible discipline it takes to be a world-class athlete. You'll see a lot of the top companies, a lot of people starting off doing something to do with sport or dance. It is a really difficult choice to become a dancer. There's very few choices that are as difficult, but that discipline and that rigor and that commitment to passion is a huge strength. And then I think another thing that I learned as a dancer that's been eminently helpful to me over the years has been this real sense of curiosity about the world. It's watching Francesca dance now, I want to know the backstory, I want to know more about the music, I want to hear the music. There's a curiosity that we bring as artists that I think is hugely helpful in society, like we're in the workplace. But I could go on, there's a long list. And if you haven't found out and not been able to articulate what your strengths are, I highly recommend it, because those, funny enough, are usually the strengths that take you to whatever you want to be doing as your next career. My favourite poster ever. So Mark, I think by the time he was 18, dropped out of university, created Facebook, right? And there's this poster called Be the Nerd. And it's really such a lovely thing. I tell it to my kids all the time. Don't try and be the cool kid, be the nerd. And how that relates to my experience in the career so far has been, I'm always that person who wants to read the extra thing, or go to that extra talk, or try a new course at this recently. It's insane. I don't recommend this at all. But I've got this real question in my mind about how good I am at running a P&L. I find myself at the stage running lots of big P&Ls for big tech companies. And so I did a master's university course in financial management for execs. I've never been so terrified in my whole life. But I like being a nerd. I like to go and learn and put myself out of my comfort zone. There's lots of different things I've done over the years, and it's not all necessarily university courses that are done. A lot of it's just been learning, reading, what publications I'm reading, what I'm watching, TED Talks that I'm following. I really think there's something paying attention to what's around you and opening up your mind to learning new things and being really disciplined about that, and makes you brilliant at whatever you choose to do. If you want to be a photographer, if you want to be creating a wellness piece, if you want to be joining big tech, all your attention could and should be on like, what can I learn to make myself truly S? And so I'm a big fan of Be the Nerd. It's played out well over the years. So this one's a bit controversial because everyone talks about careers, get in, be part of a tribe, stay with your tribe. I'm a bit more, over the years, my career's changed so many times, and it's been quite deliberate. Because I do think about the skills that I have and the learnings I want to have and the service I want to bring to other people quite strategically. So I think about my career as like, if I could objectify myself and think about my strengths and what I have to offer, where does that play well? And that in different places has played out, it's been quite challenging actually, because if I think about myself, Leigh, I get very awkward, or sort of, self-doubt comes in. But if I look at Leigh, who's done X, Y, and Z as this to offer, I'm able to plan a much sort of bolder vision for what I want to be doing. And one of the few things I would say, if you haven't done it already, I think I've got a few Mub MTs in the audience who'll know this, is find a board of directors for your career. So have you heard that? It's a really interesting concept, and I don't know if we talk about it a lot, but there's people that you really think are amazing, and you don't know if you'll ever be able to get a conversation with them or anything else. Those are the people you should be finding. Have friends and family who tell you you're amazing, which is great, and that's important. But people who you can go to and say, listen, I would like to have, there's a Harvard Business Review article on this if you want to read up on it, and actually get the mechanics of how to do it. But people you can go to go, I've got this crazy idea, what do you think? And put in time with them every quarter. Go to them with the actual question that you're trying to solve for, or a question that's always the best, and get really objective advice on what you try to do, and/or to provoke you to think bigger. That's often what's happened with my little mini board of directors. These are people who've been tracking with me in my career for like at least 10 or 20 years. So choose your board of directors, put in a rhythm of business, and when you're going to see them, go and ask them the big question. Get that independent advice and treat yourself as this independent business. It's been really helpful to me because it takes the self-doubt out of it. This is very practical. I won't dwell on it, but if you don't know how to run a P&L, to read up about businesses before you join them or industries before you join them. Work out if they're in growth mode. I think when you're in industries that are in decline or being challenged, try and understand why before you put your own career and your love and your passion and your talent in service of it. It's very hard message, but I have always looked for business, industry, people who seem to be in high growth and where there's momentum. It seemed to me 15 years ago that digital was a really good bet for where I wanted to place my skills and my energy and talent. That has definitely paid off for me. It's not the only place that, and it doesn't always have to be things like tech. It could be there's a certain type of person that's just blowing through, creating new and extraordinary artistic work. But find out what is in growth and where that opportunity lies in the line of talents to that. Be very careful with your line of talents, because I've sometimes wasted years of my life trying to chase something when it's actually in decline. So just be aware of that. And if you don't know how to read a P&L, learn how to read a P&L. It's always good. It's always a truth-telling moment. I find this very liberating. If I try and compare myself to others or how I do, always a waste of time. There's always someone better, smarter, more everything, right? We all know this. We all talk this about our parents. But if you are able to compete against yourself, that for me speaks to growth. It's like, what am I going to be doing that actually allows me to push myself to think about the world more broadly, to be in service of community, to be in service of my family? Like, what is the stuff that I can do better leads to a much more fulfilling, high-performing life, let alone career. So just a sort of very obvious statement. Mr. Gates, he's always got something interesting to say, doesn't he? So have any of you had this experience where people overestimate what they can do in 1 year? We all think we can go and change the world in a year. Very rarely happens. And then underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So I think that's a really profound statement. And actually, I've looked at some of the data and I've read up and I've met some interesting people in this space. Sometimes the optimum way to think about your life is in a year. It's quite a nice mark, is to go in a year's time. And I'm a big fan of vision boarding, things like that, writing a vision statement and showing people
because I do like to get pushed out of my comfort zone. I think what's the most bold, crazy version of my life that I can live in the next year? And there's lots of literature, but the one I would recommend is called Fast Forward by, I'm going to forget whose name it is, some incredible women. It's called Fast Forward. It's an orange book, but on Amazon it's but it teaches you all that stuff. You know, those limiting beliefs that you drag around, hacks yourself over time. You go, I'm a dancer, I can't do this, or I'm, not very good at public speaking. Trust me, I still believe that. We've all got these limiting beliefs, and if you can start to work around what those limiting beliefs are, or get beyond them, and actually set up bold and brilliant visions. So usually on a year-like basis, you can do some quite good incremental work, and over time, it adds up to bold, beautiful, wonderful careers. I've heard and feel my friends and maybe myself worry about imposter syndrome. Has anyone in the audience felt that ever? I think to myself, at least one. Okay. This is Michelle Obama. Like, if she has imposter syndrome, what help? What can the rest of us do? I share that with you because we all have doubts in our abilities about our power and what power is, And I really feel as a dancer we spend so much time in front of that bloody mirror, being self-critical and pushing ourselves, and what makes dancers great, right? We're really good at feedback and making ourselves honest about stuff. And there's a couple of things that I would state about this. One, imposter syndrome tends to be a phenomenon that's experienced by underrepresented groups in particular. So I often find in my own experiences when I'm in a group where I don't necessarily feel I belong, that really kicks in. So just be aware of it and name it and call it out. But also someone who looks after sort of quite a large organisation of people, I often find the people who do have the imposter syndrome often show us as humble. I like humble. Humble comes from the Latin word humanus, which means grounded and in the earth. And there's something wonderful about that. And so if you feel like you are suffering from imposter syndrome, first ask yourself, is it because of this group that I don't belong to? And then name it and put it to the side. Or is this actually my superpower? I'm grounded, I'm humble, I'm ready to learn, and I love feedback. Because the latter takes you up all sorts of extraordinary paths. So just a thought on that. I by no means assume that's the solution to all of our various iterations of imposter syndrome. I'm nearly there. My rhyme looked terrible. Okay. Getting on one of my soapboxes. So Indra Nooyi is an amazing, amazing woman who ran PepsiCo for many years. And she's always worth following. But I was trying to think about, those layers where you try and put yourself into a new career or to a new job, first that feeling today. And you feel like you need to put on a stage premiere. And we all know how to do that, right? Dancers know how to show up as a character and present a certain way, present yourself almost like as a character. I would say don't do that. This is maybe just, life experience kicking in here. But if you can be yourself and really stand true to who you are, you're that much more compelling in the world. A recent experience of that was I did this languorous 5-month process of interviews to take this new job at Intuit. And I was hesitating because I always, this big tech that I'm talking about, it's got nothing to do with our world, right? And my soul, I'm still a dancer for the record. And slightly terrifying big people were interviewing me. And the first question everyone asks you in an interview is, so tell us about yourself. That awful question. And I was always like, there's 2 chapters in my line. There's the marketing services. I ran Saatchi. I did CEO of something else. And then it's 8 years of Meta, and I've done VP of this and more. I thought, let me risk it, and let me put chapter 1, the real chapter 1 in that conversation. And the real chapter 1 is I'm a dancer. And I did pre, and no one knows what I'm talking about when I talk about this. Maybe some of you I'm appreciated, but I promise you, it's the chief business officer. He did not. But do you know what? They all loved about our story. They all loved my chapter 1. And it was just me being me. And then what happened was they opened up. So the chief business officer of Intuit actually was an NBA basketball player, and the chief product officer, she was in the Israeli army. So suddenly the real stories around people came out. And that creates an understanding of each other, also the shorthand. If you're a dancer, everyone knows you're excellent, right? You're really know what you're doing, and you're really hot grafter, and you've got a soul.
Not always obvious, I know some of the people I work with, but yes. And actually, this thing of being myself was such a liberating force through this interviewing process. I'm not going to say it's the reason I got the job, I hope it wasn't. But it's really liberating. Just being you is such a powerful story. So as you go about your endeavours, and if you are thinking about the next, just being you is such a special thing to do. And then this is my point 10, which is a bit more forward-looking, because a lot of the time, I've got a teenage daughter, I've got a 12-year-old boy, and aside from them, I get various other people, actually my children are especially curious about my point of view on the world, but other people are. And a lot of people say to me, like, what does the future looks like? Which are the industries? What are the careers I should be focusing on? The answer to that always used to be software engineering, go study tech. That was the answer. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm pleased to see there's like a seismic shift happening in Silicon Valley, where I don't think they do. This whole, can't do any presentation these days without artificial intelligence, but this whole massive seismic shift happening in society around artificial intelligence, which I've been lucky enough to be working for the last 4 or 5 years, I think it's beyond any of our wildest imaginings. So what are the careers that are going to come through, and what are the individual talents that are going to be high value? And I tell my kids regularly the story, whether they hear this or not, I don't know, but I say, I think knowing the difference between right and wrong is going to be incredibly powerful in this world we're living in. I think just being able to empathize, work with, collaborate with everyone as the world is more and more democratized is super important. This whole idea of princes and paupers is gone. And the third point is human creativity has never been more depleted. And I do believe that to be the case. And artists and dance, the musicians and storytellers, there ain't no AI that can do that stuff. It can enhance, it can make it better, it can make it easier, but it can't do the human origination and thought that we all represent in this room. So I just wanted to leave you with that message. I hope it was an encouraging message. So rather than this, which I thought was a really daunting title, I'm going to make it even more daunting, actually, because I don't think it's so much about taking charge of your career, but as someone who is a dancer and who has had no university degree and has had some interesting aspects of my career, I can't promise you it is that spriggy lamb. I promise you, even my career, it's not all beautiful. It's tough, right? And I do think take big your careers would be my message for you. Whatever it is that you're imagining, why not go even bigger? Because dancers is that gateway to greatness in their life. So hopefully that sets us up for a good next stage.
Just to keep that Facebook better doesn't mean she can get you back into your accounts if you've forgotten your password. So you're not out for that. So we're going to continue on this session now. We've got some other amazing panelists that I'm going to hopefully keep up that inspiration train. So hold your applause if I'm introduced everyone as we preset this, and I can live my chats through host dreams of having a red safer to present on. We're going to welcome Brandon O'Dell, who is a member of the International Organisation for the Transitional Professional Dancers and General Director at Omscholing Dance in Netherlands. Judy Leering, who is a D&D trustee and financial consultant. Gläfke, who is a professional dancer, sport and performance psychology lecturer and consultant, and Neil Skidmore, who is a director at JSO Productions Limited. Let's give them a round of applause. You need a slowly ankles to sit in your chairs, the sofas, twice. Again, there will be time for questions from the audience or those online watching, so do get your questions ready. I'll get the microphone. Now you can prove your dancer and sing the squat all time. There we go. Get one microphone on this side. Please, you want to sit on my red couch with me? Oh, that's it, yeah. Yes, fabulous. Gosh, that was absolutely amazing. And we're going to continue again, taking charge of your career. Everyone here has been a dancer or is still a dancer, so they have an amazing story to start. So we go on. Joel, do you want to start? Tell us a bit about maybe your career, how it started and where you are now.
Yes, pleasure. Pleasure to be meeting everyone and to be here today. So, yes, I am a professional dancer specializing in street dance, even more specifically house dance and hip-hop. And that journey had started back in 2009 when I randomly came across hip-hop videos and decided that this is it, this is what I want to do. and also believing that I was really, really talented when in reality I wasn't. But that's a completely different story. I just continued on this journey, and of course, how it goes. My mother was not convinced with the idea of becoming a professional street dancer, and wanted me to study. And I then went on to basically say, all right, by the way, I'm from Germany, I'm from Hamburg. I then said, if I'm going to be studying, I'm not going to be doing it here, as in Hamburg, but I'm going to go somewhere else. And I then looked around thinking like, okay, what are the dance scenes that I know about, dances that I like, and decided that I was going to come to London, started business management course as in a degree, realized after 1 year, this is not for me. And without telling my mom switched to psychology. She was not impressed. But this is pretty much the reason why I am here today, because at some point then through DCD had the opportunity to kind of deepen my practice when it came to psychology, because I was already kind of using the knowledge that I acquired during my studies throughout the workshops that I would be teaching, my mentoring sessions. And this is pretty much how this career transition kind of started, where I realized that dance provided me with something that it provided me with flexible knowledge, but at times I felt like this space was a little bit too flexible, whereas on the other hand, the academic world was a little bit too rigid, and I always felt that I was kind of somewhere in the middle. And this is the reason why this career transition into more performance psychology, bringing the two worlds together, became so important, because I'm a big believer of if the spaces that you want to be a part of don't exist, you need to create them, and that sometimes also means creating something new, or trying to at least. And this is the reason why I'm here today. Yes.
And just think I think one of the great things about that, and I've done this in sessions with Isabel, when you say that, almost doing a stock take of your skills, as you said, you spotted that gap thinking, I'm often too rigid, I don't want to be that flexible, so again, taking charge of a career, which is fabulous. Do we stay on this side? Do we go next for us?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, DCD, for putting us all in a room together today, for inviting me here to be part of this panel, and thank you for your brilliant presentation, very inspiring. So my name is Brandon O'Dell. I live in Amsterdam. I'm the director of the Retraining Center for Dansers, DCD of the Netherlands. And I've been in this position since the 1st of March. Before that, I was a professional dancer in the United States. I moved to the Netherlands for a 2-month project that was 22 years ago. I'm still there, married, 2 children. Life happens. But what I did after dance was, with the help of the Omscholing in Amsterdam, I studied business administration and then worked 10 years in global health, and then started this position in March. I learned an interesting term this year, because we had, when I started as director, the director who was at the Omscholing for the last, I think, 30 years, we had a symposium for him. And in that symposium, there was a researcher from the University in Amsterdam, and he talked about lingering identity. And it really stuck with me, because it's this idea of allowing yourself to be in the present and to really check yourself about, okay, what am I carrying? What baggage am I carrying along with me? And what do I need right now to get to the point that I want to get to? And letting go of those lingering traps that we set for ourselves are something you have to be, whether that's to have to be a classical dancer in a world where maybe you would go further doing something else, or if it's suddenly being in university. I know when I went to study business, and just having danced, I couldn't sit for an hour. So I was standing in the back of the classroom, moving around, So there was a real lingering physical quality to a lingering identity, but I had to also give into that process of letting go. And I think when I say that, it sounds very easy. But I think it's a challenge, and I think there's a lot to get out of it to really think about who it is you want to be and what's holding you back, and shedding your skin. And that takes a lot of courage, and then it's nice to have some of the things that Leigh was saying about a board of directors who can also work with you, check with you, and also those people close by who just need to give you a hug sometimes.
Fabulous, and flip along to this side. Judy, do you want to do microphone? You do. Surprise!
Well, if it's like Mandit, I'm not brilliant at speaking in public, and so I had prepared a wonderful thing I was going to read. But this morning, I have felt so overwhelmed by the things people have said, and so I'm going to tell you my story in a completely different way. I spent 20 years of my life as a professional ballet dancer. I loved dancing, I loved my career, and when at 37 I found myself expecting my first child, I stopped dancing, had my child trying to go back, it didn't work, and then 5 years later, at the age of 43, I found myself as a single mother. I had no job and I had no qualifications, and I was pretty desperate actually. I was stacking shelves in Tesco's, which was okay. I thought I could do this actually, and then I thought I've got to find a job. I need to do something. I must be able to do something with the skills I had as a dancer. And after a whole load of interviews, I thought various jobs from IT technician, I had not a clue, to finance assistant. I thought, anyone can be a finance person. Forget this. I had an A-level in maths, a whole other story. And I thought, right, I'm going to go for this. And I got tickets, accountancy, quick dummies. And I learned the words of P&L, balance sheet, and I thought, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell them I can be a finance assistant. I got the job, and my new boss a week later realised actually I had no idea. but I had skills that I had learned as a dancer that got me through that. I was determined. I was hardworking. I thought I'll learn this. I said, well, I started a course at the local college, AAT. I hadn't, but I did. and suddenly I found myself doing a course in accountancy. I was very lucky. The organisation I started to work for was called Kwaliteit, which in Welsh means fair play, and it was a women's economic development agency. So we helped women returners after they've had children to work. So I was working within an organisation that actually supported me as a single mother. They had flexible working. I took in late 1990s. So I was able to work flexibly, pick my children up from school, work hours at home, which was unknown in those days. They paid for me to go to university. They gave me day release. And 10 years later, I was appointed financial director of this particular charity. The thing that today, and the poor lady I was sitting next to, when I applied for the job as finance assistant, I never mentioned the fact that I'd been a ballet dancer or a dancer, professional dancer. I kept that out. I made up things about I'd worked in a company as a novara, and I never told anybody. And it was probably about 6 years, nobody knew that I had ever danced. And I can remember one day it came out, probably had a few glasses of wine. And I said, oh, well, when I used to dance, and it was quite a book, and then it came out. And they all said to me, what did you miss the most? And I said, what do you miss the most? I need to finance. And I said, you know what? I miss the applause. And that sounds really shallow, but that recognition, that instant gratification that you get as a performer, you perform and you get that instant. Trust me, in finance, you don't. And then about a week later, so I'd done the payroll or whatever, and about 10 people came and gathered around my desk, and they. So they said, well, fabulous payroll. And today was the first time I realised, actually,
I should never have left it in a box. I love dancing. You're all so privileged who are still in the ballet world and the dance world because it's special.
Yeah. It's very special, and trust me, accountancy has nothing on it.
Everyone's origin story. Well, you always get out at 8 a.m. The little master don't leave.
I forgot the question. We get
Tell us about yourself and your dance, or your career in dancing, and who you are now.
Right, so going into dance, my mum wanted me out of the house for Saturday with my sisters. So I got sent to ballet classes with my sisters. I then progressed from local ballet school, going to the Junior Associates program at the Royal Ballet School, went into White Lodge at the Royal Ballet School, into the upper school, and then I was very lucky to meet the Royal Ballet Company, where I have a career for 12 years. So that was all very, very lovely, and it's a great fun.
Well, quite simple compared to some other people, and I see that freelance dancers in my life, you've got a completely different job on your hands there,
And I think a lot of what you already know will really help with transitioning, because you're already looking at different jobs coming here, coming there and going. So my life was completely cosseted, whereas I think freelance dancers, you've already got a foot in the cake of trying to find other things. So I think you're one big step ahead, to be honest. In the Royal Ballet, had a great time, danced lots of bits and bobs, that was all good fun. I got a big knee injury one season, and that took me out of action for most of the season. And so during that year, you try everything. When you've got an injury, you do Chinese medicine, you do everything, and then you finally realise that you've got to go under the knife and have an actual operation, so I did all that. I still got back at the end of that season to dance in Romeo and Juliet, so that was nice. But in that year out, I went back to what I used to do. I used to DJ the school parties at White Lodge, and I was quite a good DJ. I loved my music. My nickname in the company was Boogie. So I thought, well, in this year out, when I can actually move. I can't not move. This is all right. I went back to DJing with some of the society companies, the Juliana's and Joffred's discotheques. So I went to them because they had all the kit, and I turned up and DJed. And I got back into it, really enjoyed it, and then saw the entire other side of not just DJ, but the entire party business as well, and then production and everything else. So I got back to dancing at the end of that season, but I was still DJing. So I'd do cut down at the Opera House at 10:30, jump into my little silver Beetle, drive to the Dorchester that used to have a nightclub underneath it, and I'd DJ in there on Friday and Saturday nights from midnight till 3 a.m. A bit tired sometimes for the double show on Saturday, but that's the way it was. And then when it came to, so a couple of years after that, I finished dancing when I was 29. And that all came about because the Opera House was closing down for its first big refurbishment. They were going on tours for 2 years, and lots of it was new choreography, and I wasn't in a lot of that, to be honest with you. It was more the younger guys, and I was getting a bit older. And I thought, don't know if I want to go touring for 2 years and not really do a lot, just go into class most days. So at that time, the chap that I was DJing for offered me a job. I thought, well, better to go when someone's offering something to you rather than you knocking on doors trying to get a job. So I left, but I had that dipping the toe into another world, first of all, and seeing other things and learning other things. So I think that is what I did. And and the chap I worked for, he shut the business 4 years later, and I took it over. I've been running it for the last 21 or 22 years. So so that's me.
But I think what's lovely about this section, taking charge of the career, obviously he started off with Francesca, obviously is around someone who danced and is also a DJ for once later as well. So maybe DJ Boogie, you get on the decks as well. You'll spin or two. I'm going to ask him one quick question, and Leigh, you might want to ask him a question, and then we'll throw it out to you guys at home and in the audience. So maybe slightly different to you, because you've still got very much a portfolio and career. But can you maybe talk about maybe how, because I think transferable skills has been a massive eye-opener for a lot of people today, not realising like, hang on, if I pick that skill up, I can plug that to other careers. So maybe can you talk about, in your portfolio juggling, how the dance skills will maybe help pin them together, or how they work in different sectors?
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that like something that I luckily did like naturally is that like I was always relying on other ideas that like came from different sources of inspiration that would then like influence the way I would move, dance, approach the dance, and that kind of like became the foundation of like understanding to a certain extent as well, like skill transfer. Even though like we said before as well, it's quite more complex than that, than just like taking the skill and like transferring it into another domain. But like what I really started understanding is that like what is needed is, or what I do in dance gives me depth of knowledge. But like what is really, really required like to transition is like the idea of like breadth of knowledge, understanding that like it is not only how deep you're going within the domain, because that is specific to the domain, but like there's so many other sources of information I've got like on the basis of the life that I've lived that has nothing to do with dance, that has affected my dance, but in the same way like I am now capable of like taking these things and putting a twist on the depth of knowledge that I will like acquire, whether this is in dance or outside of it. But I feel like this understanding has really, really allowed me to just like create, for example, a report with like people that I would be working with on the basis of like, for example, being a like performance psychologist. In the same way that I'm going to be building it with a student, I still deal with the person, right? And that doesn't change. So like me caring for somebody as like the teacher that I am or the mentor that I am, like is not going to be like much different from like the idea in which I'm going to be caring for somebody that like comes to me with like different needs based on the services that I offer in a different space, right? And like understanding that at the end of the day is always like myself doing that, it really like opened up this idea that whenever I jump into a space, what I really do is not like master the craft itself, but like I master myself within the craft. And I then take that, and like this knowledge allows me to master myself within a different craft. And that again leads to more knowledge, right? And the more I did that, the more like I felt my mind and my knowledge became flexible. And yeah, I feel like this is pretty much what like allowed me to get to this point so far. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. And then, Brandon, my question would be, because you've got quite unique insight, obviously coming from the Netherlands, from the US. A lot of people in the audience, we have someone who was from the US, we had Turkey, we had France, whether they live here or they're here seeing it. Do you find, is this thing, we're not alone, it happens, people want to be in the Netherlands, America, do they feel the same when they're maybe stepping out of dance? Do you see that where you work?
Yes, certainly. I think there's some universalities, right? And there's a group of us here that are going to be meeting tomorrow, sort of the DCDs of all the different countries, and working on what is it that we have in common and how can we learn from each other. And one thing that I wanted to share with you is that our office, we've tried in the last few months to stop talking about a dance career and a career afterwards, and that it's one career. And just to try to change our minds about what is it, and it's not a dancer who's taking something from one place to the other, but they're taking themselves through time and space into just a new location, a new opportunities. And if you think of it as one career, from that, your first part-time job at McDonald's to your, your volunteer work after your pension, it's all you, and you're bringing everything along with you. I found that very empowering for myself, but also for the people that we talked to. So I think that for me, there's something in there about remembering to keep coming back to yourself.
That is like G7 summit tomorrow, like dance charity. Just a quick question for you both before we open it up to floor. Obviously, Leigh, if you've got any questions. So for Judy and Neil, are there any skills that surprised you when you found your second careers that you didn't realise, like, oh, I can do that because of dance? Was there anything that really surprised you? Like sometimes you separate them so much, like dancing on stage, how would that work in an office, but whether that's built in rapport? So what skill maybe surprised you the most that you had from dancing? Humour's definitely one of your skills.
For me, the dance to party organising an event is just like performance. So everything's got to be ready for curtain up. You go through the different scenes within the night. So we're calling for dinner. We've got the entertainment, the cabaret entertainment. That finishes and it goes to dancing. So all the stages, it's just like performance. And then thankfully, when the last guest goes, that's curtained out. So that that is I view every party, every event is just like a performance, and you are there, and you're putting on a performance. You're giving people a party, and you're looking up. It's just like a show. There's absolutely no difference. That's how I always think of it.
Does this still give you the same buzz then, almost?
Yeah, that's sometimes it's quite terrifying. But yeah, no, I do. The past dance was massive. I mean, that was colossal. I mean, that was just amazing. But the event organising and so forth, especially because it's completely down to you. And again, I was very costed in the Royal Ballet. You were looked after the whole time. So I've now got a life it's me. There's no one else. It's just me. I'm responsible for absolutely everything. So it's my responsibility. But people are paying me a lot of money to put this on. It's all down to me. So that's a big change. That was something I didn't used to. But that's the thrill. Someone's invested. They trust in me. They give me their money. They want the best 50th birthday. Want the best exhibition, and I delivered it. And they're happy with it. And thankfully, the majority of my business is repeat business. So
that's lovely to hear. Because I was speaking to Scarlett, not where she was, but great. We were talking about chasing the buzz. And that's so hard when you maybe stop dancing. So I think it's so lovely to hear that in other avenues, you can still find that life, adrenaline and that buzz still. You've had time to think. Have you found a skill now?
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I would say the buzz in accountancy is probably not there.
However, I think one of the transferable skills was counting. Think about dancing. Try dancing a Stravinsky. Ballet. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. I do the same when I'm an accountant. I suppose that's a skill I can think of.
Even we do have a smile on your face anyway, which is great.
Not always. But Leigh, do you have any questions for our panel before we open it up to the audience? Rather hear what the
I was to say, I'm not interested.
So I've got more. It's about you and those at home. So do we have any, feel free to wave your hand up in the air if you have any questions from the audience. No question is a silly question. But no questions is silly. So it's a question. Over there. I want to be a flatting bound up the stairs. And try to trip. Over center. Okay, where's the hand? There. Okay. His muscles down. Really obviously here, like with Dawson's Creek.
I'm very conscious that we're now creating a school to serve this kind of transferable skill. For a parent who would have concerns to bring a young person into this sector, what advice would you give a parent?
You need to time. You see, I wasn't going to answer any questions. Straight at that. When I was a child doing ballet, growing up, my father was very clear that my education came first and my dancing career came second. And, oh gosh, we had such fights and battles about it. Then until I had 2 A-levels, he would not let me dance. I mean, in those days you listened to Dad. I don't think they'd. And I would say advice, and somebody earlier spoke about as a parent to your children, the importance of education, because I believe education is the foundation of everything we do. And I am so grateful to my father for insisting that I had my education before I started the wonderful dancing career. And so that would be my advice.
Any more questions before I answer from a parent or another question from the audience? Or is that it?
I think that when it comes to talking to parents about our difficulties, is really about letting them know that we have considered what it is that we're looking at, and that we're also understand what it is that we want to do, right? And I think that a lot of the fears that our parents have about our dreams, our ambitions, are rooted in this idea that the background that they came from. But one thing that I started understanding, and something that allowed me to communicate with my mother as well, was this idea that times are different now than they were before. So the fears that my mother had are connected to a time that is not now. So if you show like your parents like this understanding of the times that are now, and make it clear that like this is what you're scared of, this is how the world has changed, and this is what I'm looking at this point in time, you're capable of like creating transparency and clarity and like also trust. Because I think it's really, really just like important that like your parent can trust the fact that you're going to be all right. And the more you're capable of like establishing this idea based on like, you know, everything that they have gone through as well, and acknowledging the struggle as well, you're capable of like creating a discourse that's going to be like helpful and beneficial to both parties. Yeah.
Any more questions? Leigh spoke about a board of directors. They're like, this is the board you want, so like ask any question. Okay, I'm coming up that. Talk amongst yourselves until I get that.
I sat in the back, so I wasn't going to ask a question. No, it's Hi, thank you so much. It's so inspiring. I think this question specifically for Leigh and Judy, but maybe to all of you as well. Do you have any advice for that kind of legacy, those legacy qualities that you have from being a dancer that kind of affect you negatively in new jobs? So for me, for example, I transitioned to a different career. I'm working management consultancy now. But obviously as a dancer, you're such a perfectionist and you work so hard and nothing is ever good enough and you continue. And that is really holding me back at the moment because I'm knackered. And there's no applause at the end of every day to kind of be like, okay, it's done now, I can go to the pub and I'll go back to the studio tomorrow. It kind of never ends. So do you have any advice?
I think I've got a mic.
I've got a mic, yes, I've got a mic. I love your question, and congratulations on such a massive pivot. It's just flashed. It's quite an encore. I would just say that I recognise those symptoms exactly. The perfectionism, the drive for success, the pushing yourself, the working more hours, you know, I don't know about you guys, we used to do 7 days of performances, so we used to work Sundays as well. So it was that intensity, and then you take that into the workplace, is your strength and it's also your weakness. And I would say that it's taken me a very, very long time to embrace focus. I'm exceptionally good at prioritizing. I'm exceptionally good at doing things like non-goals. Have you heard this language of non-goals? I love it. It's basically, you know, all those really important things you have to do. It's just going, I'm going to non-goal them. I'm going to focus on these 3 things. And I literally do a daily meditation, and a year out, I've told you about how I plan everything. So a year ahead, and then I did quarterly, and then I'm very good at planning my time, because I want to make sure that I'm spending my time doing things that I'm uniquely able to create a difference with. And that has released me from some of my dancer habits, which is I need to do everything. And then the self-critical thing, as I said earlier, like I'm flipping that into humility. Like I genuinely look at what I do and I go, is that enough? And sometimes, and it's really taken off, so I've just had to get to this point, but good enough is enough. And that's a really hard thing to learn. But I wish you luck, because I know exactly what you're saying, and there's many other things I could say, but I would say focus and allowing yourself to go, it's okay, that's enough today.
I think absolutely, Leigh. I mean, I agree with you. The way I became a great note taker, so I would write the notes, and then like you, I'd say, right, I'm not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. And I remember one holiday, because the worst thing, when you work in an office environment, or emails tend to just come in, and you come back from a holiday of a week and you've got 1 million. And then you just think, the whole holiday, the value of that holiday is gone. And I said to the chief exec of the organisation I was working with, I'm going to put a notice on that. I'm just telling you, a notice on my email saying, just to let you know, this email, it wasn't in these words, but something like, will be deleted as it enters my inbox. If this is important, please email me again in a week's time. I have to tell you, I got into quite a lot of trouble for doing that. But I came back to no emails. It was fantastic. There were some in there, I deleted them all. And if it was important, they came back to me. I'm not suggesting you do that, but there are ways that you can stop it. There's a lot of work that we do that is unnecessary, and like you said, it still happens even if you don't do that work. So try to find little ways that you can get rid of something that you do that is not going to actually have any impact on your job at all. And it's hard to find them sometimes, but I think you can find them. And that just eases up more time to do the important things, really.
If I'm going to have one more audience question before I ask my final wrap-up question. So anyone up online or in the audience has one final question? Over here, yes. Steal that from you.
Then can I just ask, like, what age? I know you shouldn't ask people their age, but just roughly, when you made that transition, and what was your personal situation? Because obviously I have 3 kids. You know, I'm 44. You know, I can feel my career's coming to an end physically, but I can also feel like I'm exhausted by the industry, you know, in terms of where it's at and where it's progressing. And so, you know, what age was you when you made that decision? And what was your personal circumstances surrounding that, you know?
Should we start with the microphone on that side? You guys go first. You've got time for your hands.
So when I stopped dancing, I was 34, and I hadn't had children yet, so I think that's different. But I know for myself, the structure from the Omscholing, from the retraining program in the Netherlands, and the coaching that I was able to get through the community was very helpful. So I think in any situation, it's to take a little bit of time before you make the decision, before you jump, to get a structure in place. What are the things that you need as a person, financially, spiritually, psychologically, to be able to make those steps and to be flexible in the future. And I think that's going to vary for each person, but I think an organization like DCB and getting information from people, you know, calling people up, if you want to get on LinkedIn and send me a message if there's some way that we can help or information we can provide, happy to do it as well. Yeah.
And John, it might be slightly different for you because you're still got your toe in dance, but maybe what time, where were you in your life when you had that kind of that switch flipped on?
All right, good question. So when it comes to starting the transition, because I'm still very much going through it, I was 31, I'm 32 now. So what I've done is definitely something that is still very, very new, and I'll let you know how it goes. Now, the thoughts were similar in the sense that you start getting tired. You start getting tired, and I maybe started getting tired from when I was 28. And funnily enough, I had this vision where I told myself, again, I was enjoying mentoring, and people were telling me that I was really good at it. And as a result, I told myself, this is probably what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and that's all right, cool. And then I spoke to a friend of mine that is also really successful, that is one of the directors of Cirque du Soleil, and he said to me, "You're way too young to be locking yourself into the future." And at the time, he was about 11 years older than me, and he told me that I'm about to leave Cirque du Soleil, and I was like, "What do you mean you're about to leave Cirque du Soleil? Everybody wants to be a part of exactly what it is that you're doing," and he said that, but everybody that feels like that is not a part of Cirque du Soleil. So it's we're looking from outside in. And now what's interesting about that is that, there is actually research that shows, and literature, that's provided that, speaks about this beneficial aspect of late specialization. Our society is really, really obsessed with the idea of early specialization. But the reality is that it doesn't actually benefit us in most tasks as much as late specialization would. And even when you're looking at research as well, I believe that the average age of tech company startups is 45. It's around 45. And the older you get, the higher your chances of success. So this is not me saying start a tech company. This is not me saying, but it's just to put the context.
No, so next year I'll get you some.
Perfect. But yeah, it's just again the value of late specialization that I would highlight when it comes to these things.
Amazing. Quick answers from you three, and I have one final question. I'll leave you time to prep quickly. What one piece of advice you would give to someone who's at a crossroads and they want to move forward? So you've got time to think about that. You guys won't ask, but yeah. At what point did you kind of have that switch from dance? Yeah, come back.
I loved your answer. I love the way you set up your own answer in a sense. It's the sense of, I'm tired. And I remember feeling that feeling, and just for the record, I felt it a few times subsequently in my career. You get to a point where you go, I've done my bit here. This thing's annoying me. I was pissed off. We used to get weighed once a month. So what the fuck's that for? Honestly, and just getting boring. I was like, this makes no sense to me at all. I was tired of it and frustrated, and I don't like being that person. Like, you have one precious life. And if you're already asking that question, go for it. And I would say it can be for the next year. It doesn't have to be for the next 10. It's that whole point about you can underestimate what you can do at 10, but take the pressure off yourself. If you're asking a question, you're feeling tired, it seems like you answered your own question, really.
Judy, a little quickly. And you can think of your one piece of advice.
Oh, my.
Same question quickly this week to finish that off. When did you kind of have that itch to be like, dance isn't for me? Was it situationally for you, actually?
Situation, it wasn't. I didn't have a choice, really. And I think that's what was quite upsetting about it, whereas it feels like you had the choice now. You know you have to do it at some point, but you've got time to choose it now. And I think that is a good thing.
I was 29, 30. I'd say there's never an ideal time. But I think you do feel it. And I would suggest maybe try some other bits and bobs while you've still got something else going in the moment. So you make a smoother transition.
Great, and now rapid fire from this way, all the way around. One piece of advice for someone maybe in the audience who's at crossroads and they maybe need a little push to help them go forward. So one piece of advice. Slightly in the trip. Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say don't get caught up in this idea of like the head start. The head start that people are like so convinced about, like be ready to let that go because it's connected to something called the sunk cost fallacy. Again, like you investing in something that like you don't really feel is of benefit, the head start will get lost. So like be ready to let that go.
I'd say zoom out. There's so much, as a perfectionist, so many of us in this room as dancers, we can get tripped up on things that maybe not that important. And if you just zoom out, I think it helps to really focus in, hone in on what it is your heart's really, truly calling you to do.
Leigh?
So boring. Because I think we're quite idealistic as dancers, we all got big dreams. And, I think the one thing I wish I'd thought more comprehensively about was like, what's the sustainable infrastructure? Like, what's the stuff I'm going to do just while I'm making this transition to make sure bills are paid, the children are looked after, whatever it is, just make sure you've got stable infrastructure. What if that takes whilst you make a transition, and then lots of different transitions are in it. But I think infrastructure is so boring. So,
and as an accountant, I would absolutely. That is what I was going to say. Make sure if you have the time, you've got something in place to make sure financially you're stable, emotionally you're stable, because that way you'll make the best choices when you go forward, and choose with your heart as well. Go with your heart. Usually the right.
Neil, this is the mic drop over now, the last piece of advice.
Well, unfortunately, it's very similar to everybody else. I would recommend trying something else while you already get paid
from your current job. Don't risk everything. Just try it first. See where you go and see what comes to you.
And before we give them a rapturous applause, just to let you know, we're having a short break now, back at 3:35. There are refreshments out at the Mix. Obviously, don't forget the inspiration window that we have. Leave us a message, and anyone online, don't forget to comment. Now, let's give them the round of applause.
Judy, extra applause.